What's going on, guys? This is Kobe DW here. Just thought I'd do something a little bit different here because I don't normally make these type of videos, as you can see. But I decided to make a top 10 video, and no, it's not really a big deal or anything. But I decided to make this video just because I'm bored as hell and I've been fucking quarantine and whatnot, because whatever, it doesn't matter. In this video, I'm going to be ranking my top 10 favorite WrestleMania main events of all time. Let's just get fucking started. Alright, honorable mention will be Hulk Hogan versus The Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. At the time, I think that was the first double title match in WWE history, because Hulk Hogan was the WWE champion and the Ultimate Warrior was the Intercontinental champion. It was never happened before, so the two fought, and I also think that was the first time the two faced each other one-on-one, I think. So yeah, and I liked it and it was enjoyable, so I would no doubt watch it again someday. So, yeah, let's now get into the top 10. And I do have the logo of the WrestleMania. Well, the WrestleManias. Duh. Man, I'm just fucking messed up today. Okay, so yeah. Number 10 would be, in my opinion, Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14. At the time that happened, Stone Cold was already like the biggest babyface of the company, because at the previous WrestleMania he encountered Bret Hart in an epic submission match, and that was when Stone Cold Steve Austin officially turned face, which is, you don't know what that means, like a face is a hero and a heel is a villain. Yeah, I said that right. So yeah, face is a hero and heel is a villain. So Stone Cold Steve Austin at the time became the biggest babyface of the company. Everyone loved him. Like, there will not be us, like right after WrestleMania 13, everyone would go crazy, because the reason why they were cheering him was because of the fact that, and you should watch the match itself. It wasn't the main event of WrestleMania 13, because that was obviously Undertaker versus Psycho Sid. But Bret Hart and the Stone Cold Steve Austin remains one of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time. And no, I wasn't born in 1997, but I did watch the match, and it was freaking epic. So, like, Austin was locked in a sharpshooter, which is basically like a leg submission and whatnot. He was in that move for like 3 or 4 minutes without tapping out. And he just, like, and he was bleeding too, because he was already busted open, like, way before the ending. So anyway, he was locked in that sharpshooter for like minutes without even tapping out, and then he lost conscious, and he just gained him the respect from the WWE Universe. So when it came to WrestleMania 14, he already won the Royal Rumble match back in January. He earned a title shot, which was Shawn Michaels. Oh, Jesus. But yeah, so this was also Michaels' last match in WWE in 4 years, because back at that Rumble, which is ironically where Stone Cold won that match, Michaels suffered a back injury during a casket match with The Undertaker. And it was freaking scary, because Shawn Michaels at the time was the greatest wrestler ever. There was no denying. Everyone loved him, well, even especially as a heel. But he was that damn good. He would always put on like 5-star classics. Everyone would just pay attention. Like, people would wear his shirts. Everyone loved Shawn Michaels. When he turned heel, everybody turned his back on him because of the Montreal Screwjob, which happened back in November of 1997, and that was the time when Bret Hart was about to leave WWE and go to WCW. And yeah, Michaels did lock in Bret Hart's move, which was the sharpshooter. Bret Hart did not tap out. Let me clarify that. So the referee just rang the bell and just gave the title to Michaels. Everyone was pissed. Nobody. I did not even like the Montreal Screwjob. It was a really shitty decision. Yeah. But WrestleMania 14 was Michaels' last match in 4 years before he returned 4 years later. His match with Austin, and it did feature Mike Tyson, who was the special guest enforcer, which he also played a major part in this match, but I'll get to that in just a little bit. In terms of the match, the match itself was great. Like, Michaels can still, like, do, like, all the moves he's done, even with the back injury, because it didn't look like he was injured, but there was still those effects from the injury that he had back in the Royal Rumble. So, and this featured a very, very iconic ending. Like, Michaels went for a Sweet Chin Music, which is a super kick. Stone Cold went for the stunner, got countered. Another Sweet Chin Music, countered into a stunner. The crowd went wild. Mike Tyson, who was also on Shawn Michaels' side, and also the special guest enforcer, came in, just like count, and Stone Cold won the title. That's what made this main event to me important, because this was the official start of Stone Cold. Like, Stone Cold became more of a babyface than he ever was, even when he turned face back at the 13th WrestleMania, which was the year prior. So his career was now skyrocketed to the top. He finally won the WWE Championship. Everyone was just paying attention to him now. And Mike Tyson, he would join forces with Austin, and he like knocked out. I don't know if it was a legit punch, but like Michaels was so frustrated. Because Michaels was part of Triple H in the team called D-Generation X, which was a very legendary tag team. I have a shirt, but I'm not getting it out right now. So Michaels got upset because Mike Tyson. Well, that's I don't know. Shawn Michaels got upset because Mike Tyson betrayed him and joined forces with Stone Cold. And at the end, like, I don't know if Michaels slapped or just attempted to punch Tyson. That fell, and then Tyson knocked out Shawn Michaels. Now again, I don't know if it was a legit punch or not, but yeah, it was iconic, and that's why I ranked that number 10. And number 9 is Edge versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 24. Now, this event was fun in general. It did feature, well, it did have one of the best main events in Mania history. But my personal favorite match at WrestleMania 24 was Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels in a career-threatening match. That's irrelevant, as that was not the main event. But I'll get to that one once I go into my top 10 favorite WrestleMania matches some other time. So Edge versus Undertaker had one of the best rivalries of 2008. I think they started like right after the No Way Out pay-per-view, I guess. So the two fought for countless times in 2008. They fought at WrestleMania. They fought at Backlash. They fought at ECW. Yeah, I think it was ECW One Night Stand in 2008. They fought at SummerSlam, in which I think that was the official last count. Well, technically their rivalry started back in 2007, even before WrestleMania 24, when Undertaker was the World Heavyweight Champion. Edge had the Money in the Bank contract, cashed it in, and won. But that was the first encounter. The first real in a full length match was at WrestleMania 24. And correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, and at the time Undertaker was still undefeated. He was 15-0. I'm trying to get my words out. He was 15-0 entering WrestleMania 24, and Edge was the World Heavyweight Champion, and he was still undefeated in one-on-one action at Mania. So, and Edge's first one-on-one match at WrestleMania was in 2002. He didn't appear. Pretty much, he was the only time he lost at WrestleMania was the previous one, which was a Money in the Bank ladder match. But mostly Edge won his WrestleMania matches even at the time. So Edge and Undertaker fought for nearly 20. I think it was nearly 20 minutes. It could have been more. I'm not sure. But Undertaker was the challenger. Edge was the champion. There were some good counters in there. like the Undertaker has this move called the old school because he has his opponent's arm, he walks the top rope, and he just comes down like hits an elbow like the back of the head. I think I don't know if Edge was trying to do it or if it was Undertaker, but like Edge countered it and then Undertaker just countered again and just like dragged Edge across the ring. But yeah. So the most intense moments came to like the near end of the match, where the referee was knocked down and Undertaker delivered his tombstone. The referee took long, and obviously Edge kicked out, and we all saw that coming. And Edge hits his spear, which was his finisher. Everyone thought the streak was over. Undertaker kicked out. Edge hits another spear, locks in a triangle choke called the Hell's Gate. Edge taps out, and Undertaker wins the World Heavyweight Championship. And then he became 16-0. Then, see, when you have moves like that, like there's pretty much a difference between storytelling and match quality. Like, you have to have enough moves in a single match to make it look great. Storytelling can be different and it can like fit into the match, but there's just two different things. I don't know, but yeah, Undertaker and Edge had a great rivalry in 2008, and if you haven't seen that, go watch it. At number 8 is Shawn Michaels versus John Cena at WrestleMania 23. Now, at the time they fought, they were already the World Tag Team Champions. And they've already had their match confirmed even like after the Rumble. Shawn Michaels himself didn't win the Royal Rumble match, but when he won the tag titles with John Cena, and John Cena, yes, was still the WWE Champion at the time. So Cena and Michaels won the World Tag titles. I think it was against Batista. I don't know if it was Batista and Undertaker, because they did team up, but I don't know if they were the champions. It could have been someone else. But yeah, Shawn Michaels and John Cena won the World Tag titles, and Cena was still WWE Champion, so he was a double champion. And then the match between Michaels and Cena was confirmed for that year's WrestleMania. And it was awesome. The match was like 30 minutes long. There were some good moves, and I'll never forget the time when Shawn Michaels super kicked the referee in the face in that match. And that spike pile driver on the stairs was freaking hardcore. Cena was bleeding, but not like too much. I think it might have been too. I don't know. But all I can say is Cena was bleeding from that spike pile driver, but I don't know if it was a real cut or blade job or whatever. So yeah, but the two fought for 30 minutes. It was filled with, well, some of it was slow paced, but there were enough moves to qualify it as a great match. I thoroughly enjoyed it very much, and we all thought Shawn was finally going to win that championship. And at the time, he hadn't been the WWE champion in 10 years, and everyone wanted Michaels to win. That Sweet Chin Music hit. He was already laying face down on the ground because he was exhausted, because the match, they were like, 25 minutes into the match. Shawn crosses the cover, Cena kicks out, and gets locked in an STF, and next thing you know, Michaels taps out, the match is over, and Cena's still the champion. And then the next night, in a Tag Team Championship Battle Royal, Michaels eliminates his own partner, because in a Tag Team Battle Royal, only one member of the team has to be eliminated, the rest of them being gone. Which I found kind of unfair, because the other teammate didn't get eliminated, so shouldn't they be in the match for the remaining until they're eliminated as well? I mean, what's the point? But, yeah. So, and they did have a rematch on Raw the next, couple weeks or so, which was the greatest Raw match ever. Yeah. Anyway, at number 7 is Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31. Okay, so, 2015 overall was a pretty mediocre year for WWE. The beginning, which was the Royal Rumble, which was a pretty bad show to begin with. Everyone expected Roman Reigns to win, because the previous Rumble he should have won, because at the time he eliminated more people than anyone else, and he still lost. The next year, everyone expected it to happen. He won. Everyone was pissed off, and it was predictable, and it was not just that, but the match itself was very, very shitty. I'm not talking about the WrestleMania. I'm talking about the one from the Royal Rumble a few months here. So the 2015 Royal Rumble match was the worst Rumble match of all time. There was like only one surprise entrance, like it was like one or two, but that was just it. And Daniel Bryan was in the match, which was a big mistake because even at the time, people still loved Daniel Bryan. So people cheered when he came to the match, all just to be eliminated 10 minutes later. Everyone was pissed off. They booed all the opponents with the exception of Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler, but that was just about it. So, yeah. But eventually, Reigns ended up winning the Rumble. Not even The Rock's return on that night completely shaped up the momentum. It just made it worse because we all wanted Rock to turn heel, but he helps out Roman Reigns because they're cousins. Wouldn't a simple heel turn hurt it? No, because it would actually grow. So, and then eventually a month later at the Fastlane pay-per-view, Reigns would put his shot on the line against Daniel Bryan, which was a very bad mistake because, well, even though he won the match, it still wasn't a good idea because if Reigns won the match fair and square and people wanted Daniel Bryan doing it, too bad. Whatever happened, happened, okay? So when it came to WrestleMania 31 and Brock Lesnar, it was brutal. It was brutal. And then they faced off again at WrestleMania 34 3 years later. And I'll tell you, I was at WrestleMania 34 myself a couple years ago at the Superdome. Or not Superdome. Well, yeah, it was the Superdome. I'm thinking of something else. So anyway, 2 years ago we went to New Orleans at the Mercedes-Benz Superdomes for WrestleMania 34. The main event was Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, and I'm not talking about the one because the main event I'm talking about on the top 10 was 31, which was in California. But their WrestleMania main event rematch at 34 was so freaking boring. It was aggravating. I wanted to chant something so bad just to get my entertainment. But I wanted to pay attention. I didn't want to disrespect the wrestlers because, yes, even though it was boring, but you paid here to see it. So I just mind my own business and I just watched the match without trying to yell and rage saying this is boring or stuff like that. I just, even though I was rooting for Roman, it still didn't matter. So, yeah. But back to the WrestleMania 31 match, not the 34. So, WrestleMania 31, their first encounter was epic. Well, not really epic, but it was more brutal. So, even though Brock dominated a majority of the match, Roman got some shots too, 3 Superman punches, 2 spears. Well, that was basically all that, the main offense. And Brock delivered 10 German suplexes and 4 F5s to Roman Reigns. But here's what that made meant. It was good at first. But this was the main reason why it was so important. Seth Rollins, at the time, he was still Mr. Money in the Bank. He came out while the match was still going on. He came out and he just cashed in his Money in the Bank and became WWE Champion by pinning Roman Reigns. He didn't pin Brock Lesnar, who was the champion. And Seth became the first superstar in history to cash in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania, which made this main event important and in my top 10 favorites. So, yeah. And just the Lesnar and Reigns part was brutal enough, but Seth cashing in just made the main event 10 times better. Okay, at number 7 is Daniel Bryan versus Batista versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30. Now, this was pretty much the culmination of the Yes move. Well, not really the culmination, but just the end of the hell that Daniel Bryan went through ever since the summer of 2013, because Daniel Bryan became the WWE Champion for the first time back at the 2013 SummerSlam event. 5 minutes later, Randy Orton cashes in Money in the Bank. He gets Triple H, who was the special guest referee when Daniel Bryan faced John Cena for that title. So Triple H attacks Daniel Bryan, allows Randy Orton to cash in, and then the next thing you know, Randy's the champion. So they had a rematch a month later. Daniel wins the title, but gets the title vacated just literally 24 hours later because of the biased referee ending. And so for months and months, Daniel Bryan was getting screwed after title shot after title shot. He kept getting screwed. Finally, at WrestleMania 30, and he actually had 2 matches on this night, he had to face Triple H because Triple H was not even scheduled for a match. But then Daniel Bryan came, and I said, screw it, let's do it. So Daniel Bryan fought Triple H at the beginning of WrestleMania 30, and it was a classic too. Let me clarify that. Daniel won, so he was allowed in the main event with Batista and Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. And I'm telling you, if Triple H won the match, the crowd would have been hijacking the show, chanting for like Daniel Bryan, and it would just be annoying. But the crowd got what they want, so Daniel was in the main event. So yeah, but the match itself was great, even though I really didn't like the fact that Batista and Orton were just dominating like over half the match. But Daniel Bryan, after getting like brutally punished, he was about to be stretched out. He was like, no, I'm going into this match. I don't care if I'm injured or not. I'm finishing this match. Let's just go, okay? So Daniel Bryan, he went back into the match. He fought, and then Triple H came out to interfere for what happened earlier in the night. Obviously, it backfired, so Daniel attacked both Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, who's Triple H's wife, by the way. And by attack, I didn't mean like punch. He just like did a dive on Triple H and he just knocked down Stephanie McMahon. That's why I said attack. But yeah, Daniel Bryan, he still went through a little bit more punishment. Finally, at the end of the match, when he attacked Batista with a knee and locked in like a crossface, which he calls the yes lock, Daniel Bryan finally became WWE Champion again. And I know, despite the fact that that was the third time he won the title, it was like the greatest moment of his career. No question about it. And that's what made that story inspirational, because everyone loved Daniel Bryan in 2014. He was the most liked wrestler of that year. He was one of the best wrestlers of the decade. Everyone loved him. And they would get his merchandise. It would people would like to wear wigs and like fake beards to make it look like Daniel Bryan. Everyone loved him. Okay? And at the time when he won at WrestleMania 30, he became like the Stone Cold Steve Austin in terms of babyface of the PG era. And that's why that made that story very inspirational. At number 6 is, I'd say it's number 6. Did I skip one? Hold up a second. No, this was number 6. That was number 7. Okay, this was number 5. So number 5 is Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19. Now, the Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle rivalry was great, and it was one of the best SmackDown rivalries of all time. At the time when Brock Lesnar entered WrestleMania 19, he'd only been in the company for a year, but before that, he was already doing dominance. Not even a month into his debut, he won the King of the Ring tournament. He became WWE Champion 4 months into his debut, and he also became the youngest at age 25. He would have epic rivalries with like the Big Show and whatnot. He won the 2003 Royal Rumble match, and then at WrestleMania 19, and which was arguably Brock Lesnar's best match in WWE history, was when his match with Kurt Angle came. So Kurt Angle was the WWE Champion entering the match, and Brock Lesnar was the challenger, and he had like a ripped like tape cage around him because in storyline he had injured ribs, not reality though, but he did suffer a legit injury, which I will get to in just a little bit. So the two fought for like almost 20 minutes or so. I think it was over 20 minutes. But each of them would deliver German suplexes, which would be freaking epic. Back then it would be epic, but nowadays when you see Brock Lesnar do a German suplex, it gets very, very boring. But back then it was like Kurt Angle was just like suplexing everyone even before Brock Lesnar came into the WWE. So I watched the match. It was freaking brutal. Brock sold a lot of great moves well. And then Brock became the first Brock became the first person to, I think, kick out of the Angle Slam. And then Kurt Angle became the first guy to kick out of the F5 from Brock Lesnar. He delivered a second one, and then Brock decided to go on the top rope, and he did a shooting star press, which is like basically a backflip off the top rope. And I'm not talking, I'll just do it. I'm not going to do it, actually, though, because like normally a backflip would like do like that, but he was facing frontwards and he just like did that. But it went horribly wrong because he did connect it somewhat, but he landed on his fucking head and he suffered a concussion. He didn't break his neck, but he suffered a concussion and he still somehow won the match. That was what freaking amazed me. And after that third F5, Brock became WWE Champion for a second time, and that's what made that match very freaking brutal and legendary. At number 4 is Shawn Michaels versus Chris Benoit versus Triple H at WrestleMania 20. It really sucks nobody is going to talk about the main event of WrestleMania 20 these days because of what Chris Benoit did. It was very sad because in 2007, Chris Benoit, he was like on the brink of going into the Hall of Fame. But however, he fucked his life up because of all the concussions and the steroids he had. He killed his wife, he killed his son, and he killed himself like all in one day. I don't know. Well, actually, I don't know if it was in one day, but it was definitely in a short period of time, and that's why WWE would never mention him again. I don't care what he did because I cheer for Benoit because of his wrestling skills, not his personal life. So when I watched Chris Benoit won the 2004 Royal Rumble match and became the first. Well, actually, he became the second person to win the match in the number 1 spot. He main evented WrestleMania 20 against Shawn Michaels and the World Heavyweight Champion Triple H. The match was nearly 25 minutes long, and everyone was cheering for Benoit. And the match got pretty bloody too because Shawn Michaels, he hit the ring post and he was bleeding. Now it wasn't like a legit cut because Shawn obviously like he took a small blade and he just like cut like that to make it look like it was legit. Because it's a show, okay? It's not. I don't say it's fake because the wrestlers can get injured very badly, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's not fake, okay? It's predetermined. So Shawn was bleeding, and then soon Triple H was bleeding. Chris Benoit was out of the action for like at least 5 minutes, and then Michaels and Triple H would be going at it, and then they would hit their finishers on each other, the Sweet Chin Music, pedigree, and Benoit would still come in and somehow just finish the match up. And then he got suplexed through a table by both Michaels and Triple H. But the near end of the match, Michaels was going for a Sweet Chin Music on Benoit. Benoit threw Michaels over the top rope, and then Triple H went for the pedigree, countered into a crippler crossface. Triple H tapped out, and Benoit won the World Heavyweight Championship. And what makes it more, what sucks more is that when Eddie Guerrero came out, and I'm talking about like in terms of like no one's going to talk about this anymore, but Eddie Guerrero came out, and he was the WWE Champion of the event too. So Eddie Guerrero came out as the WWE Champion to congratulate on his friend Chris Benoit for finally winning the World Heavyweight Championship. They both cried, but it's emotional, but at the same time, it's so sad that no one is going to talk about this because of what Chris Benoit did. I still talk about it because it was a great match. I don't care what Chris Benoit did in real life. This is his wrestling career. This is what he did. This is what he does. This is what he does to entertain fans. Not the real life Chris Benoit, okay? So, yeah. It was emotional. Benoit just fought his ass off for months to get to for years to get to this moment, and it finally happened. At number 3 is Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 12. So, what made this match legendary? Basically. So yeah, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had the first ever Iron Man match in WWE history back at WrestleMania 12. It was back in 1996. It was a 60-minute Iron Man match too. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a time limit match. Like you can go for 30 minutes or even 60 minutes, and this was a 60-minute Iron Man match. If you score a submission or a pinfall, it wouldn't stop the match because you would just get 1 point, and the winner and the wrestler who had the most points will win the match. Unless if they were tied, they go into the overtime, and whoever gets the final pinfall or submission will automatically win the match. So that's what they had to do in this one. Nobody scored a fall or submission. It was still tied 0, 60 minutes into that match. When Bret Hart, it looked like Shawn Michaels was going to tap, but unfortunately time was out. They were still stuck at 0, so they had to go into overtime just about a minute and a half before Shawn Michaels hit Bret Hart with a Sweet Chin Music, and that was it. 61 minutes of entertainment. That's what made this one of the greatest WrestleMania events of all time. At number 2, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock at WrestleMania 17. Now, I will say, WrestleMania 17 is the greatest WrestleMania overall. And I wasn't born at the time, but I watched the whole event like a few months ago. It was awesome. So, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock was one of the greatest, probably the greatest rivalry in WWE history, in my personal opinion. So, yeah, the two already fought at Mania a couple years ago, but this was without a doubt their best counter against each other. So, the two fought for the WWE Championship in a no disqualification match in the main event of WrestleMania 17. The match was nearly 30 minutes long, and it's hard to explain because the match was just so damn good. Like, Rock would get some offense, Stone Cold would get some others, and then the two would steal each other's finishers. Like, Stone Cold would deliver a rock bottom on The Rock would deliver a stunner on Steve Austin, and they would just do like the sharpshooters and whatnot. So yeah, and then when Stone Cold did the stunner on The Rock, it was legendary because but then Vince McMahon came out and he already fought that. So Vince McMahon had problems with Austin. He turned supposedly he turned face, but then Stone Cold joined forces with Vince McMahon by the end of the match, was what made his heel turn legendary. But even before Vince McMahon came out, he was gonna let The Rock win, but no, he pulled The Rock out of the cover, and this was the second WrestleMania in a row where he screwed Rock. Well, not technically screwed because there was no disqualification, but he just didn't want Rock to win the match. So yeah, and then Stone Cold just went on just beating down The Rock, and then boom, he finally won the WWE Championship again and joined forces with Vince McMahon, and that was with the true birth of the Alliance, which was basically, at the time, two different wrestling companies. Well, they're now owned by WWE, but at the time, WCW and ECW would invade WWE, and then they would do the same over and over again. And then after 2001 Survivor Series event, it was winner takes all. Whether WWE wins and ECW and WCW go out of business, or the Alliance wins and WWE would go out of business. Obviously, WWE won because it was the biggest wrestling company of all, and it still is to this day. But that's what made WrestleMania 17 so legendary, and with matches like that. And the number one, my favorite WrestleMania main event is Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26. Now, the WrestleMania 25 encounter remains my favorite WrestleMania match, period. It wasn't the main event, but their rematch, while not as good as their first one, was still freaking legendary. It was a career versus streak match. I was about to say for a championship, but it was nothing. It was just a career versus streak match. At the time, Undertaker was 17-0 entering the match, and this was the second WrestleMania in a row where the two fought each other. The previous WrestleMania, like I just mentioned, was without a question better than their first match and the best WrestleMania match of all time. Michaels lost to The Undertaker, and Taker became 17-0 that previous WrestleMania. The next year, Michaels was just so desperate he wanted to fight again. So the match was only 24 minutes long compared to their first one, which was only 30. Well, not 130, it was more than that. So anyway, so at WrestleMania 26, Shawn Michaels was so desperate to end the streak. So at the Elimination Chamber event, while Undertaker was defending his World Heavyweight Championship inside the Elimination Chamber, Shawn Michaels came out from under the ring, kicked Taker in the face, and allowed Chris Jericho to capitalize and win the title. So the two was already scheduled to fight at WrestleMania 26 in a career versus streak match. So yeah, it was by far the best career-threatening match in WWE history. There was 3 tombstones, 3 sweet chin musics. It was freaking epic. But one of the things that ruined any chances of topping their first match was that Undertaker legit injured his leg 1 minute into the match. He delivered an old school. He jumped off the top rope, hit an elbow, and he landed awkwardly on his leg. He still continued, thank God, but had the match ended right then and there, it would have been completely pathetic. But thank God it wasn't. It turned out to be the greatest main event in WWE history. Well, not all of WWE, but in just WrestleMania. So, and Shawn Michaels delivered a moonsault, which is basically a backflip onto a table, and then delivered a sweet chin music. Taker still kicked out, and then Taker delivered a tombstone pile driver. Michaels still kicked out. It was shocking, but not as shocking as the one from their previous encounter. And when Taker was looking for another tombstone, he just like, no, I give respect to you. And then Shawn Michaels did the throat slit, which is Undertaker's thing. Slapped him across the face, tombstone, bam. The match was over. Taker was 18-0, and Michaels had to retire. And it was a legit retirement, too. And that's what made that match so legendary. But anyway, those were my top 10 favorite WrestleMania main events of all time. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a comment down below and leave a like. And yeah, peace out. And subscribe too.